Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. On Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Welcome to Inspired Conversations. I'm so glad you're here with me today. I'm your host, Linda Joy, Inspirista, Mindset Mojo mentor, and publisher of Aspire magazine, the beloved inspirational magazine for women since 2006. You ever think about the stories you tell yourself? Or maybe you know someone who keeps telling the same story over and over, and their life just seems to reflect that stuck story. Or maybe you catch yourself telling a story to someone that makes you feel bad after you tell it, and you catch yourself saying, why am I doing this? Stories are not just a way to communicate about our life. They are powerful tools that actually contain the details to what is holding us back from living the life we want. The stories we tell actually become very powerful magnets for attraction, whether we know it or not. And I have to tell you, I'm so excited because today, Carrie Rowan is joining me to share some ways that we can learn to tell a new story and get some tips to feel better in these uncertain times. Carrie is an international best-selling author of Tell a New Story, 5 Simple Steps to Release Your Negative Stories and Bring Joy to Your Life. She is also a certified mindset coach and founder of the Story Method of Transformation, teaching you to live more joyfully by rewriting a new and empowering story of your life. She's a teacher and speaker, uniquely combining the power of provocative storytelling with live music. Passionate about the mind-body connection, meditation, neuroscience, and lifelong learning, Carrie is also a mom of 2 lovely daughters. Welcome, Carrie.
Hi, Linda. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I am so glad. You know how excited I was. We've known each other in a different capacity for quite a while. And when I heard that you were writing a book, I was like, oh, yeah, baby. And so we connected, and I said, tell me about what you are up to. So why don't we start there?
Sure.
What led you to writing this book called Tell a New Story?
Well, it all comes from ourselves, right? We inspire ourselves, and we teach that which we need to learn, don't we? And so I noticed that, I had a lot of things that happened in my life, things that I wish didn't happen in my life. And so we all have to find ways to face that. And I started through the years noticing these stories that I was telling. I was telling myself, I was telling other people. When I started uncovering some of my own stories, and I realized the stories I was telling about what happened didn't make me feel any better. As a matter of fact, a lot of them made me feel worse. And as I started to dig into my own stories, I looked around me, and it became easier for me to see patterns in other people's stories. So I started kind of uncovering all these juicy things about stories and these patterns. And I'd look at the stories that people would tell, like you were mentioning, the same stuck story. And then I'd look at their life, and their life was stuck too. And I saw this really strong correlation between what we say and what we put out there and what's coming back in the form of our stories. And so all of this intrigued me, and I knew I had a story to tell because of the crazy, things that happened in my life. And I always knew that I would write a book. I was always telling 3-minute stories through my song as a singer-songwriter, right? So I was writing about those things in a more of an emotional way and, a rhythmic and rhyming way through a story. But then when it came down to sitting and really writing out this story, it was just a whole new, incredible experience for me, and really, really inspiring.
Oh, what I love about it too is, along with sharing parts of your journey, you're actually giving them, the readers, simple steps to help them release their stories. Mm-hmm. How were those steps born? Was it from your own journey?
Absolutely. From my own journey and from my heart. I mean, this book is, it is a series of my stories. They're my personal stories. And when I share my stories, right, we learn storytelling is ancient. We've been doing it since, cave people time when they were drawing on inside caves. So stories are how we, not only how we communicate, what happened, they're really how we communicate our beliefs and our wants and our needs. And so learning about these stories and uncovering them and sharing the whys behind these stories has so much power. It really can change your life by changing your story.
I believe that, and like you, we all have backgrounds, we all have stories, and for many years, I always judged my journey and created a story about it, right? Like,
Hmm.
former welfare mom. So for years, that was like a label that really, that's not who I am.
Hmm.
But when I think we take on the story as almost a belief system, but also a persona. Did you notice that in your work?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And it's so interesting. So, as I was saying before, as I share my stories, right, and my personal stories, you can see your reflection of yourself through my stories, and that's the beauty of storytelling. That's the power of storytelling, is we can teach others through our stories, and we do. We start to catch on to these personas, and when we start to understand the brain a little bit, and we say, the brain is doing this to keep us safe, right? Most of the stuff that it does, all of these knee-jerk reactions and all the stories that it tells. The brain loves to fill in the blanks. If we don't have all the information, it's going to find something to fill in the blanks for us, right? And usually it's worse than what reality really is or what the truth is. So that's where these personas come from. That's where these stories come from. And when we actually take each story and pick up each story, as I bring you through the exercises at the end of each chapter, that really brings you through this, story catching, I call it, where you're catching these stories, you're looking at them, you're holding them, you're asking yourself questions, or sometimes you're just sitting with the story and not doing anything with it. You're just acknowledging it without judgment, like you were saying. That's the tricky part, that we're going to do this story work together, but I'm going to ask you to not be judgmental. I'm going to ask you to have self-compassion, really, because these stories serve such a powerful purpose. And in a lot of cases, they serve a real noble purpose. We're trying to get a need met. We're trying to ask somebody something through a story. There's so many intentions behind a story. Once we can bring this all into light and open up the picture and step back in a bigger picture of why we're telling the story, it all makes a lot of sense and it becomes easier to change those stories.
Oh, it's so true. And what you said a moment ago about when we share our story, we can see ourselves in the stories of others.
Hmm.
I've always been drawn to books of, other women or stories of other women for years, for decades. That's why I started my publishing company. So when you stepped out teaching this in the way that you're teaching it, it's like a personal development tool.
Absolutely. I mean, learning from our own stories and learning from somebody else's stories. There's a lot of, as you know, right, being an author and a publisher, there's a lot of vulnerability that goes into writing a book. And because this is really more of a teaching memoir, as much as a personal transformation type of book, a genre, you're sharing this so that others can see themselves in it. So others can say, oh my gosh, I do that same thing. I say that same thing to myself. Or it really just evokes the feelings that I'm sharing in the book to really get to the core and the bottom of your own stories. There is no more powerful way to learn, which is why a lot of corporations now, if you notice, all are talking about the storytelling way of developing their business, and their plan, their model is all around this storytelling. What's our storytelling? It's this new type of branding with the storytelling. So it's all very relevant in today's world.
Well, it really resonates with me when I started Inspire Living Publishing in 2010. Our whole anthology model is based on the power of authentic storytelling. Authentic storytelling is our proprietary way we teach women to write it. It's exactly what you said is through story, we can touch people. Through
Hmm.
story, we can connect people, right? And like you said,
Hmm.
since the beginning of time.
It's so true.
But
And the other thing that,
steps give them like this, it gives it a structure that they can
yeah,
understand.
it's true. And what do we know better than our own story? When we can, shine a light on our own story and bring up the life lessons and the wisdom that comes from, hey, somebody seeing my story and the tragedy that I might have been talking about. And how did I get through that? Wow. And if she can get through that, then I can get through that too. And all of those stories are weaved inside of my book, even though it's teaching you through my stories. And also the music. One of the things that makes my book really unique is that it is interactive. So inside the book, when you get to say the end of a certain, so there's five steps to release your negative stories and bring joy to your life. And each one of those stories has, for example, a meditation at the end of it. So there's a little QR code, which have become so popular now with all the COVID stuff because restaurants and stuff use them. You swipe your electronic device over it and up pops the meditation or the song where I'm really trying to share on a much deeper emotional level with the reader what was happening at that point in my life. And as we know, music is the universal language, and it really brings people in with this interactive aspect. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought it was extraordinary that you did it, and I'm glad that the QR codes, are really like taking off, because I think it's such a adds so much depth to an already amazing book.
Well, yeah, thank you. It's a really innovative way to get the reader to understand me, not just as the author, but hey, I'm just a person too. I'm just somebody going through the same things, and if I want to, in the very beginning, I really connect with them and I share from my heart, hey, here's what I'm hoping you get out of the book. And then there's another video, like maybe a how-to video to show them tapping or whatever I'm talking about as far as a methodology in that chapter. So it's been a powerful vehicle for me to really reach out and touch the readers on a more intimate level.
Well, we're going to take a break, Carrie, and when we come back, I want to talk about, because you put meditations for each step of the book, I want to talk about why you believe meditation is so important in today's world.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be back in a moment. I'm with Carrie Rowan of carrierowan.com. Be sure to visit our website, learn about her book, beautiful services, courses, and more. We'll be back in a moment.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Inspiration for a woman's soul. Aspire Magazine, inspiring and supporting women on the path of self-discovery. Claim your free digital subscription today, which includes access to thousands of dollars of personal development bonus gifts from Team Inspiration partners. Claim your Aspire Magazine subscription today at subscribetoaspire.com.
Hey America, we need to have a little talk. We've got more food than we know what to do with in this country, yet 17 million kids in America are struggling with hunger. Makes no sense. Luckily, the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks has volunteers gathering excess food and getting it to hungry kids. They're kind of like food angels. Hey, become a food angel yourself by supporting Feeding America in your local food bank at feedingamerica.org. We can't do it without your help. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business.
Hi everyone, this is Shay Parker, the host of Best of the Best, which airs live right here on IOM Radio every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific. I'm super excited to bring you expert guest hosts, spiritual discussions, free psychic readings, and so much more. I can promise that you will not want to miss this one-of-a-kind, fun, yet touching, down-to-earth show. Join us every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific on OTR-FM. This is Shay Parker, and I can't wait to see you there.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Welcome back. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Linda Joy, and with me today is the one and only Carrie Rowan, author of the best-selling book, Tell a New Story, 5 Simple Steps to Release Your Negative Stories and Bring Joy to Your Life. So, Carrie, I know, as we were discussing in the last segment, that you include meditations with each of the 5 steps. On a personal level, why do you believe meditation is so important in today's world with everything we're facing?
Oh, wow. It couldn't be any more important than it is now, right? In these unusual times that we find ourselves in these stressful and anxiety-provoking times. And so because we all know meditation's good for us, right? I mean, it calms the nervous system, calms that amygdala, We all need this calming of our systems right now. And a lot of times people say that meditation is just, it's too hard for them, or they don't really know how to quiet their minds, or, oh, I can't do that. I've tried it before. So my thought on meditation and why it's super important is that you're just asking the mind to quiet, right? We're just looking for a little quiet. I don't care what kind of meditation you like, or whatever resonates with you. I just suggest people use that. I have my own in here. They're more of a visualization type of a thing, but whatever works for you. So be open to any type of meditation. We're just looking to calm the mind, right? And once we can do that, find a way to calm the mind, sitting down, quieting our body, this practice can really transform our lives. And I think it's most important because, especially in these times when we're in such a reactive state because our fight or flight is so up, right? And so what meditation does is it really creates this space within you, this wave of calm, if you will, that resides within you. And now you have a moment between how you want to respond to somebody or how you want to react. Are we going to react with our knee-jerk reaction? And that space that you're creating gives you that choice. You can now have a moment to say, hey, wait a minute. I want to choose to respond to this person in this way, or respond to this post on social media, or whatever the issue is. You've got that moment because you've created it earlier that day. And much like stress is cumulative to the body, meditation in the opposite way is cumulative as well, right? So we're accumulating all this space and this ability to choose our responses, this ability to choose our thoughts in a more conscious fashion. And to me, that's the beauty of meditation, is really the freedom that it gives you to live your life the way you intend to in the moment.
Oh, I love that word, the life you intend to, right? Instead of by default. And for me, I used to think I couldn't meditate. And then I realized every moment is a meditation when you're fully present.
So true.
Yeah, and it changed everything for me. And now, of course, I love guided meditations and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
What in your work, as women are going through the chapter, through the steps,
Mm-hmm.
Are the steps, describe it to the audience so they know, are they cumulative, like each one feeds on the other?
Sure. Yes, absolutely. Everything's cumulative, and the steps are based on an acronym that I came up with for STORY, STORY. So they're easy to remember, but they can also be focused on separately. They're powerful. I'll just take you really quickly to what they are. So S is state of mind. In the first 3 chapters, we really talk about your state of mind and managing your state of mind. And the T in STORY stands for true intention, which is what we were just talking about. People find a lot of incongruity in their lives because they want to be living this way, but they're not. They're living out of reaction. So that's the T. And the O is for outcome. When you really can take a look at your stories, I've noticed a lot of people don't realize, we just talked about how powerful stories are and how powerfully your stories not only affect you, but everybody around you. So we talk a lot about that. And then the R is the reframe. The reframe is so powerful. When we finally find these stories through a little series of story catching that I take you through in the book, now we have something to work with. Now we can take a look and pull our lens back and say, hey, wait a minute. What really is the good thing that came out of this story? What did I learn? So that's the reframe. And then Y is you. You had the power all along, right? Just like Dorothy clicking her heels. She always had the power to go home. So we start reclaiming that power, the power that we give away without even realizing it. And so when you start to learn, you mentioned being in the present moment, that's where our power is, right? The only place that we really are in our joy and have the ability to change anything is in that present moment. So we talk a lot about that at the end of the book. And they all come together beautifully to help you change your stories. And as you start working on each step, your stories come right along with you. It's amazing how when you start changing your mindset and your intentions and you start uncovering things that you didn't even realize you were doing, how your stories just change and come right along with you. It's a beautiful process.
Well, I have to say, even just hearing what the acronym meant, that represents the simple steps in your book, each one just had its own energy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And you could feel the journey as you were stating each one. So it's like, especially when you get down to reframe. And I think that is such a powerful tool. Just because you've been telling yourself a story doesn't mean it's true.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And people don't even realize sometimes that they were telling themselves that story. And a lot of times these stories are handed down, right? Some of them can be generational stories. Somebody once told me, or whatever, they told you that money doesn't grow on trees, So these are the kind of things that get really back there embedded and can affect our abundance, attraction, and all these things. But a lot of times we don't realize until we stop to take the time and take a look at those stories, like I was saying, and take them out and start catching yourselves telling the stories to yourself and to other people. It's really powerful work, and this is why I love it so much.
And I was peeking on your website, and I know that you have a course coming up, and the show may air after that. But let's talk about that, because I'm sure you'll be offering it in the future, because it's like you took this process, the story process, and brought it to life.
Yes, it's so exciting, Linda. And the best part about the course is that it's live. This work needs to be done live. I couldn't imagine doing it any other way. And I love it because everybody has different stories, right? We all have the core of the same thing we're trying to accomplish through our stories, but just being able to share this class live with people is going to be so transformative. I'm really, really excited for it. And we do each of the 5 weeks in the class, we go after one of those steps. And we really dig deeply. And here's the power, as you know, the power of a group of women together, because I say women because that's who's attracted to this work. A group of open-minded women who are doing this work together creates such a synergy and just a co-creative power that you couldn't get doing it yourself. It's just unavailable. And then the bonds that are created when you're making these aha moments and you're transforming together are truly exceptional. I'm giving myself a goosebump as I'm talking about it, because that's what I love most about it, is connecting these women together who are like-minded, who are doing the same work. They can chat on the private Facebook group. There's all these neat things that are contained in it. And there I am with them, live coaching as we go throughout the process together. It's really powerful.
No, it is powerful. And when I read it, I was like, this is something that, like you said, it elevates the work you're doing in the book and says, come on, let's dive in, let's do it, and we're going to do it together.
Yes, there's power in that togetherness. And the connections that are made in a course like that can last a lifetime. You find like these soul mates that are doing the same work as you. It's really a beautiful thing that comes out of these. It's way more than just transforming your stories.
Well, I'm so excited for you and for everyone. To learn more about everything that Carrie's doing, visit CarrieRowan.com and be sure to download her offering and get on her list so you don't miss any of the amazing stuff she has coming up. So in a moment, we're going to take another break, Carrie. When we come back, how do we begin being more mindful of the stories we tell ourselves in everyday life? So we're going to talk about that and more, my friends, when we come back. And I am with Carrie Rowan, author of Tell a New Story. We'll be back in a moment.
This is OTRFM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
We can all use a little more peace and joy in our lives. Don't you agree? Counselor, best-selling author, and self-nurturing expert Kelly Grimes of CultivatingPeaceandJoy.com is passionate about empowering overwhelmed and exhausted women to live with more peace, joy, and meaning through the practice of self-nurturing. Through her experience working with individuals, speaking, providing workshops, and teaching professional and leadership development to forward-thinking organizations, Kelly knows that nurturing peace in the world begins from the inside out. That's why she created the free Cultivating Peace and Joy mobile app that brings you beautiful self-nurturing reminders, guided meditations, empowering practice tools, and daily prompts with an inspiring question to guide your daily self-nurturing practice. Download your free Cultivating Peace and Joy mobile app today at cultivatingpeaceandjoy.com.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth Radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Me, a cat, moving in with a new human. It took a little getting used to. She has these weird games she likes to play, like this giant feather. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. It's almost like she thinks I enjoy it. But seeing how much fun she gets out of it, well, I guess it makes it all worth it. Humans.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
This is OTR FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
You're listening to Inspired Conversations. Thank you so much for circling up with us today. I'm super excited to have a friend here with me, and her name is Carrie Rowan, and today we're talking about telling a new story. So how do we become mindful of the stories that we're telling ourselves in every day? Because we don't usually know they're even stories because they've become a belief.
Exactly. And that's why the stories are so powerful. They're a little microcosm of our lives. They contain our beliefs, our intentions, our needs. I mean, there's so many things wrapped up in a story. So when you start to unravel that, you start to catch on to the stories that you're telling. And I literally have people take their story catcher notebook around with them. And when you are catching yourself in these stories, there's something so powerful about that self-awareness that comes from that. And that's what starts the ball rolling. That's what starts the work happening when people go, wow, I didn't even know. Get a load of this story that I was telling myself. I didn't even realize I was telling it. And so as you start to unravel those stories and you start to go through the book and the steps and you start to feel better, when you start to feel better because you're following the steps and some of my tips, it becomes cumulative, right? It becomes this, you create this momentum. You start uncovering your stories, you start feeling better. All this work is just changing your life from step one on. So as you're creating this momentum, you get more and more curious without being judgmental about why and where it came from. Just really curious about, hey, what are these stories? And wow, listen, this girl had this story. I have one pretty similar too. And so then you start feeling better, right? So you start making more positive choices. You start catching yourself in that story. You start creating a new story that you can tell yourself. You start what I call polishing your pearls, which is looking at your stories as your gifts, right? Your problems are your gifts. And they're given to us so that we can uncover what those gifts are and those pearls. You know, the joke about when life gives you lemons. Well, I say when life gives you oysters, you got to get in there in the slimy oysters and look for those pearls, and then you got to polish them up. So that's part of the exciting stuff that we do. But once you begin this process, it starts the ball rolling towards uncovering, rewriting, and living a more empowering life.
And isn't that what we all want, right? I believe that's what we're here for, is to uncover the muck that we've taken on over a lifetime so that we can show up as the true essence of who we are.
Absolutely. And then it's all about feeling good, right? I mean, when we carry that muck around, I talk about, it's actually a quote that my husband says a lot. He's like, drop the bag of bricks. You know, we're carrying this bag of bricks around, we're dragging it. Imagine the physical bag of bricks that we're dragging around with us. And that's all our muck. When we decide to let that go, and all the stories and everything else and all the emotions that are tucked in there with those stories, the day that we decide to let that go, we are light as a feather. We are free. We realize that we created that anyways, and that's okay because that's what we humans do. But now we have the choice to decide, do I want to carry that, or do I want to create a new and empowering and lighter way of feeling and living my life?
I got to tell you, this just so resonates. And then you ever hear a message like we're hearing today, and I'm sure some of our listeners are really connecting with this. And then you think back at your life and go, like, think of a story that each of us has held. We all have our own stuff. But I'm thinking back, like, just as it popped in, like the story that I carried in my 20s and 30s because of, the choices I made, running away, high school dropout, all of the fun stuff. But but I carried it, and there was a denseness to my energy. It's just something that you just said that really is captivating. If I do the hindsight thing, Carrie, I can
Mm-hmm.
see that energetically, even though I was always like to the world a joyful spirit,
Mm-hmm.
there was a denseness in my own personal energy because it was a weight of the story I had been carrying as like you said, baggage. And then I
Mm-hmm.
think of how I feel now and how I navigate life, and it's exactly what you said, a lightness of spirit. So as you were describing that, I heard, Linda, when you released the story, that's why you feel light. So it's like I'm taking your message and going, it's so powerful when you can experience it.
Yeah, that's so
What
cool.
you're doing with the woman, right? It's like you are helping them experience what it feels like with the story, and then what it would feel like if they told a new story.
Exactly. I love that. It's so
It's like
true.
a contrast, right? Because
The contrast, yeah.
they already know what it feels like to wear the story, but they believe that energy, that weight, is part of who they are.
Absolutely. I had somebody say that to me the other day on a book club that I was doing. They were sharing their aha moments, and she said, you know what? I didn't even realize, A, that I was saying it, or that B, I could change it. Like people
Yeah.
are not realizing that they have the power to change that. Just we run through our lives so quickly. I think we don't take that time. And again, that's the beauty of meditation, making us sit down with a routine every day and do that and create that space so that we can examine our own lives. So we can pick up each story and say, hey, is this a loving story for me to tell myself? Yeah, no, it's really not. I've got to rewrite that or throw that out. There's a lot of different things you can do with your stories. We talk about the 3 R's of stories, reduce, reuse, recycle in the book. And it's all that. It's deciding, how do you want to live? How do you want to feel? Like you were saying, setting your intentions and then aligning your actions with that. And that's what brings peace of mind to us. That's what brings clarity and that lightness of being.
And that's such a gift that you help give to others. So let's talk about that, right? Let's talk about the benefits of telling a new story.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's so many benefits to telling a new story. We talked about, the freedom, the peace of mind, the state of mind change, the effect that we have on everybody else. And I think that particular thing is something that is really missed. I used to do a talk on my book before I wrote my book. At the Natural Living Expo. And so I had somebody come up to me afterwards, and she was most moved by me saying, take a look at how your story is affecting everybody else around you. Because we don't realize that sometimes. We can come into a room, we know how big our energy can be or how small we can carry it. It's up to us. And our stories that we start to tell, you ever notice one of those moments where you tell the story and the whole energy in the room just went all the way down to the ground? We don't want to be that person. We want to be the person that lifts other people up. And so when you start realizing how your story is affecting everybody around you, it's a super powerful moment. You really want to rein those stories in and go, wow, I had no idea I was making people feel this way with this particular story. So that becomes a real aha moment for a lot of people.
Yeah, especially because, like you said, it's a ripple effect of energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Absolutely.
and that, for me, I'm so sensitive to that. Now, how do they begin? So we know you have the 5 simple steps in the book. As the book guides them through, are there also daily practices along with the meditation? I should say, aside from the meditation.
Well, the meditation is a powerful thing to do, but I also recommend people setting up a morning routine like you're talking about. I mean, you need a morning routine. The best way to get on top of all this and to get on top of your mindset, I think nowadays we're always chasing after things and we're always running so fast. I mean, maybe not these days as much as we used to, but that's who we're programmed to be. And so we kind of forget what it is that we're here for and who we want to be. So setting up that morning routine is so important. And getting on top of mindset instead of chasing mindset is really where it's at. So I tell people to start way back to the moment that you wake up in your bed in the morning. And the second you realize you are awake and conscious, find one thing to feel grateful about. Just one thing. It could be the cozy pillow you're on, or your lovely sheets, or maybe it's the person next to you, or you hear the heat pouring into your room. One thing. It's easy to find one little thing to feel grateful about. And then think about that for a minute or two and really get your energy thinking there. And that reprograms our mind, right? So we're starting the day on the foot that we want to start it on versus the alarm ringing. We got 2 seconds to get to our Zoom call. We can't even brush our teeth. That's a different way. So before the stuff hits the fan, because let's face it, it is going to at some point, grab a hold of that moment, right? And start it right then in the morning.
Well, my morning practice changed my life, and I'm a very early bird, so I'm usually up between 3:30 and 4:30.
Wow.
Oh yeah, always. And my community just laughs because they're like, sometimes I'll post on social media, anyone out there?
I did see an email from you at like 4:45.
And it's so funny. It's just, but I was never that way. But as I got on the spiritual path, one thing I noticed is that time, there's an energy there that is so sacred. And I think that early morning window, I think your intentions are magnified, the peace in your heart is magnified. But I gotta say, I couldn't navigate life without some type of morning routine. And I love that you tied gratitude into it, because it changed my life. And it isn't what I also love about what you said, which is powerful, is it's not just about going, I am grateful. Thank you for the sheets. No feeling, no emotion. It's like, feel it. That to me is the key. It's like you have to truly embrace gratitude at the essence of who you are. That is the shifter.
Yeah, absolutely, Linda. That's the magic moment, right? That's it. I really do love my new pillow. I have this pillow that I got from my chiropractor. I really can grab it and squeeze it behind my head and go, oh my God, this pillow is amazing. My neck doesn't hurt anymore. And then I start spinning, right, in this positive momentum. My neck's not hurting. I feel really refreshed. Wow. I don't have any creases on my cheek because I'm sleeping on my back. All the good things that came from this pillow, I could find 100 of them right there in that moment. And you're just training your brain. You're training your brain to the new way of thinking, because the brain loves to find what's wrong so beautifully, doesn't it? So when we can retrain that brain first thing in the morning and establish those habits right away, then that feeling better starts to accumulate. And when people start seeing that as the result, just feeling better, nothing else, just feeling better, then your whole life starts to change, because that starts to accumulate. And pretty soon you're waking up and you're feeling not just better, you're feeling good. And then you're feeling really good. And then guess what? You're feeling great, regardless of what's going on around us. And that's the secret.
Oh, it is the secret. And our mind is going to choose that first thought when we wake up. And if we don't consciously choose something to be grateful for, what happens. It's like, oh my God, I got to do the grocery list. And don't forget that today. And that's not the energy we want to start the day. And I used to struggle with anxiety in my 20s and 30s. And it took a lot of retraining to start my day in the energy of what I wanted to experience in my life, instead of these runaway thoughts.
So true. And then those runaway thoughts get their own momentum. So you can say, hey, what kind of momentum do I want to create? And again, that's the self-awareness when you start to take your power back. Starting that whole process of taking your power back, because that is yours to decide. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. They think the thoughts are thinking them. And a lot of times they can, because that's how the brain works. But taking a hold of that and realizing, hey, you know what? That doesn't feel good. I've got a lot of little tips. One of them is this conveyor belt. It's the visualization of the big conveyor belt at the airports, with all the suitcases going by. And I imagine that those are thoughts, right? And I can choose whether or not to pick that up. I can pick up a thought, I can examine it, and I go, ooh, this one doesn't feel good. I'm going to put it back down. And if I let it just go by, it just rides right by on that conveyor belt with that same blue suitcase that wasn't mine. It just keeps going by. So when we can use these little tips to help us realize that we have more power over these thoughts than we think, it's truly transformative.
It is transformative, and I'm a visual person, so what you just shared really speaks to me, because then I can put it into context.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to take our last break. When we come back, I'm going to have you share some tips that people can start using right now. So I'll be back in a moment. I am with Carrie, Rowan, international best-selling author of Tell a New Story. You can learn more at carrierowan.com. We'll be right back.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Experience a homecoming to your heart. In the foreword of Dr. Deborah Riebel's new book, Being Love, How Loving Yourself Creates Ripples of Transformation in Your Relationships and the World, Marcy Shimoff shares, the answer to our inner longing isn't finding love, it's being love. The practices that Dr. Deborah presents in Being Love are keys to opening your heart and receiving your divine birthright as a physical manifestation of love. Her techniques, developed over years of successful private practice with her clients and from her extensive training in multiple disciplines, are accessible, compassionate, and effective. Her message is powerful, and if you allow it, will change your whole life. Order your copy of Being Love today at beinglovebook.com. and receive over 45 transformational gifts. Being Love is brought to you by Inspired Living Publishing.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern, as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
This is OTR FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Welcome back. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Linda Joy, and I am here with Carrie Rowan, and I am so excited about this conversation. And she's about to share some tips that we can all put into action right now.
Yay, I love tips. So as I was saying, starting first thing in the morning with your mindset is really the place to get a hold of it. And so from the second you wake up, and then having that morning ritual. So now you woke up and you have that little ritual in your bed. And when you come downstairs, I like to come into my office and, sometimes bring my tea with me. And then I'll do that non-negotiable morning routine where I'm going to meditate. I've got these little 3x5 index cards, and I've got all my little intentions written down on them. And they change as, time goes on, or when I add something. And so that's all part of my morning ritual that I need to do before I even launch into email or anything else. That's the non-negotiable piece. And then as the day unfolds, we know that stuff's going to happen. So the question is, what do we do in that moment, right? Well, what I suggest is you take that moment of gratitude from the morning and you bring that same practice into the day. So when I feel myself starting to get anxious, and goodness, there's so many things to be anxious about these days. All we have to do is turn the TV on. When I start feeling that, right, you can feel your body and understanding what your body does when you go into that anxiety. So you're learning to catch it and stopping yourself in the moment and saying, okay, I'm going to do some deep breathing, and I'm going to think of 2 things I'm really grateful for in this moment right now. So wherever you are, whatever you're doing, you're resetting your energy at that moment because you're catching yourself now. You're starting to feel yourself go into anxiety and worry. And so that's a really, really powerful thing to bring into the day. Another thing I recommend is I love using my body to change my state of mind, right? We're talking here a lot about, more heady stuff that we do with changing our thoughts. Let's use our bodies to change our mind. Another thing you can do when you start to feel yourself really get off kilter is to just get up out of your chair or wherever you are out of your office if you can and get outside, right? Go for a walk. It seems so simple, but it can change your story and your mind in a second. Lift yourself out of your chair and go for a walk. The other thing it's doing when you're going for a walk is you're using your body, swinging your arms, and you're rebalancing your energy centers. you're crossing your energy centers back over. And I also have a lot of tips on my Facebook Live, if you ever jump on there, where I show you a lot of little energy medicine routines that you can do, tapping on your body to really change your state of mind really quickly. Or it could be something as simple as putting on your favorite song and having a little dance party for one right there in your office. I've done that many times. So these are all things that we can do to really change up our energy during the day. And I feel like, another thing that is really, really important during the day is to give yourself a break. You ever notice the days that you don't have a break? You go from one call to another call to you barely eat lunch. Those are the days that your energy is way off because you haven't spent the moments to really center yourself. So giving yourself that small break, whether it's for a walk or if you're just standing in the hallway before you get to your next call, is really realizing that you've got a moment to breathe and to center yourself. I've got this tiny little 3-minute centering meditation that I use. And if you jump on any one of my pre-recorded Facebook lives, I use it all the time on there. And so just something that you can rely on to get you right back in to that good mindset again. So these are some really easy things that you can do. And of course, I'm going to say to meditate. I like to meditate in the morning, but if it's been a really stressful day, I'll meditate at night to relax myself as well. Whatever feels right to you, there's no right or wrong way to do it. And the thing about meditation is I always tell people, your body really already knows how to do this. Think about that moment when you go and you lay in your bed at night, the lights are out, and you're just feeling so good, that beautiful, blissful moment just before you fall asleep, right? Your brain is in that alpha wave state, which is just blissing out. Your body's relaxed. And when your body's relaxed, your mind starts to relax. That's really all you're doing with meditation. So if you come at it with that approach that your body already knows how to do it, it becomes much easier every day to just put it into your routine. So these are some really easy things for you to do. Set up your non-negotiable morning routine. Look for what's working during the day and using your gratitude practice. Use your body to change your mind. Get up, move around, have a dance party. And all these things are really going to help you. And then meditate. Find a meditation that works for you. Even if it's a little 5-minute mini meditation on the UCLA site, they've got some of those. Whatever works for you and resonates for you. And then just get really, really, really clear on your expectations. That's the last thing I'm going to leave you with for a tip. Expectations are one of those things that really trip us up. You ever notice that? If you have an expectation for something and it doesn't work out that way, that creates a ton of stress. So I like to tell people, get really clear on your expectations and make sure you're communicating them with whoever it is. Maybe it's a work situation or a home situation. Get super clear on what your expectations are. Again, because expectations really can be just a little story that we tell ourselves. When we get clear on what our expectations are before we enter the event, we really can calm ourselves and reduce our anxiety by knowing what we're stepping into before we step into it, and making sure that we said to everybody, hey, at the dinner table, my expectation is that nobody has phones at the dinner table. I use this one because it's a real one in my life. And so when I see phones, it makes me anxious. But now that everybody knows that I don't expect to see phones at the table, and I've already set that expectation, it runs pretty smoothly. But also make sure that your expectations are not for perfection, because that never works out either. So these are just some tips for you. Use whichever ones really resonate with you. Hang on to them, write them on a little card, and slap them on your desk so you can remember. But I hope those really help you to really move yourself back into that great state of mind where your energy is flowing and so is your creativity during the day.
Oh, I just love these tips. And I have a question on one of your personal ones on your with number 2, your non-negotiable time. So on those 3x5 index cards, are they affirmations? Just to expand on that a little.
Sure. Absolutely. They are affirmations. Some of them are, like one of my favorites is things are always working out for me. They can be questions to ask myself about this, what else is possible here in this particular situation? And it's really, it's also a list of, who is it that I want to be? What are the things that are most important to me? On a lot of days, I'll pick one word. If I were to show up today as this kind of person, who would I want to be? And that word might be centered or focused or, inspirational. So find something that really resonates with you. It's got to be a truth for you. And that's the thing with affirmations I feel like we get a little tripped up with. as we have an affirmation that says, I'm going to make $1 million today, that doesn't really sit with our inner selves as true. So find something that works for you, and do it just a little bit better than where you were the day before. And those are usually the kind of things that will stay with you, that you can believe, that you can, say back to yourself in your mind in those moments when you need to hear it most.
It's so powerful. I love that idea of those. Now I have affirmations around me, but I love the idea of creating something special that is part of my practice.
Yeah,
Now,
it really works.
And I have one other question, because as I said, I used to struggle with meditation. So do you do a certain type of meditation? Do you do guided meditation? Do you just,
Well,
for people curious?
Yeah, absolutely. I love all kinds of meditation, so I've dabbled in a lot of different types of meditation. My meditations in the book, which just purely came out of inspiration when I was in the midst of writing the book, are more of a guided visualization, an experience. They're experiential. So I love that kind, but I also love like the Deepak Oprah. I don't know if you've ever listened to their 28-day.
Oh, I love them. Yes.
I love them. I love the nugget of wisdom he gives beforehand. And then I love that is a mantra meditation, right? So you're repeating a mantra. You're changing your energy by the vibration of that mantra and those words that you're saying in your mind. So that's a beautiful way to go as well. So I just feel so open to whatever works for people and whatever feels right to you. I've done a lot of the Joe Dispenza meditations.
Yeah.
Those are super powerful too, but you've got to have a lot of time to do those. And I've had some unbelievable experience in the middle of those. So I feel like meditations are appropriate for wherever I am in my life at that moment. And that's what I choose my meditation on, based on what feels like, does this feel like the right thing for me right now? So that's kind of how I test it with myself.
That turns me on more, because I have to feel something if I'm going to do it. So thank you for those great tips and strategies. In the last few moments that we have, you shared so many good tips already. Is there a message for a woman who may be struggling with letting go of a story? Is there something that you want to speak to her on?
Sure, absolutely. It's never, I love to say this to people because it's never too late. I think a lot of times people get in a mindset of, oh, I've told that story forever and they're just not going to change it, right? But like, it's never too late to tell a new story. It's never, ever too late, because doing that can change your whole life. Even my own mother, okay, I'm going to use my sweet mother as an example, who is one tough lady that's filled with grace, and I talk about her a lot in my book. She has been watching my Facebook Lives. Of course, she's always on. And she said to me the other day, Carrie, you've given me some unbelievable tips. And here's a lady who's 78 years old, right? She's got a lot of stories that she's had for years. And she said, I'm really looking at my own stories. You've given me these tips, and I'm really taking them to heart. And she started changing some of the things that she was saying to herself. And so it's truly powerful. It doesn't matter who you are, what stage of life you're at. It's never too late to feel better and to change your story. And it's just, once you start doing the work, you're going to build a confidence in yourself. Once you start catching yourself tell that story, this confidence that comes along with it and this empowerment is really what's going to drive the rest of the story to change.
That's so true. And I love, love, love that your mom is not only like supporting your work, which is beautiful in itself, but she's actually taking your nuggets of wisdom and strategies and implementing them. I love this woman.
She's great. I mean, one of my biggest reframes in the book is a story about her. And I get chills just remembering the story and telling. It's in the very last chapter. And she talks about, a story that she used to tell herself. But this is a good one. This is a story that helped her get through some unbelievable loss. And then on top of that all, she had this crazy rare cancer. And you can't believe, my own mother, I said, Mom, I never asked you what you said to yourself as you went through that. And the kicker is in the book. It's just truly, truly.
I love that teaser. I love this story. And, I love your book. And I want to invite everyone to visit CarrieRowan.com. Order a copy of a book. Make sure you connect with her on Facebook and see everything else she is up to. Carrie, I'm so grateful for our time together today and loved our conversation. Thank you for coming into the circle with me.
Thank you, Linda. I really, really loved it as well. It was truly enlightening, and so happy to share with you today. Thank you.
You're welcome. And until next time, my friends, choose love, choose joy, choose happiness. Blessings.
Thanks for listening to Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. Join our sacred space every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern and meet leading female visionaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy is a soulful venue where guests share the obstacles they've overcome, along with wisdom and lessons learned on their personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic and soulful living.